Hi, this is Henk, and welcome to the edition of the Skull Sessions. And today, my guest is Mark Zirbel. Is that correct?
You got it.
Okay, awesome. All right, man. So, what's going on?
Uh, just enjoying a beer here while I chat with you a little bit. Thought maybe I'd tell you about my newest book coming out next month called Neon City.
Okay. Is that a KMFDM shirt?
That is a KMFDM shirt. Yeah.
When I was a teenager in high school, like all the like punk rockers and goth kids and whatever would all go to this one club, and one of the things they played all the time was KMFDM. It's like that and Ministry and like a whole bunch of other stuff. But that's beside the point. So, all right. So, what's the name of your book again? The one coming out?
So it's beside the point, but not totally beside the point because music actually plays a big part in a lot of what I write. Industrial music and other sort of adjacent forms
Well,
of
like a skinny puppy, or
yep, yep, all of that old school stuff and some newer stuff too. The new book is actually has a lot of influences from synthwave music. I don't know how familiar you are with that, where
No.
it's mostly instrumental stuff where it's like it sort of sounds like the soundtrack to an 80s action movie or an 80s sci-fi movie. Um, so that's like a whole kind of subgenre of electronic music out there, and that
I
actually
don't really pay attention to a lot of like electronic just per se. I like a lot more bands like Ministry that kind of like mix it up, or like
right.
like early Nine Inch Nails, or like Neurosis, who, by the way, the singer, I don't know if he quit or if he died, but Aaron Turner, who used to have a band called ISIS, which was also kind of like a noise band. He's now the singer for Neurosis, and I know he's a huge fan, so he probably like feels like that was the accomplishment of a lifetime. But that's beside the point.
That's beside the point. So yeah, so Neon City is my newest book. It's coming out next month. It's a kind of a sequel, maybe more of a spin-off of my previous novel, which was called Shithole USA.
So what? That was like a documentary.
In some ways, yes. Um, so there was one chapter of Shithole USA that dealt with a um, domed alien city, and that's the focus point of Neon City. So we've got Piera Opop is the extraterrestrial in question here. He's from another galaxy or multiple galaxies away, and he intercepted a bunch of broadcasts from the United States originating in the 1980s, and he just fell in love with everything he saw as far as the 80s hairstyles and the 80s music and just everything having to do with the 80s. So he chartered a course to Earth, but he arrives here basically in the present day, 2021. He lands here and finds that things are not at all what he was envisioning from what he saw in these movies and TV shows. And so he creates a domed city that's basically a, a living tribute to the 1980s, where basically the 1980s are frozen in time, and that's Neon City. And so that's kind of just the setup. The plot has to do with some of the people who come to visit Neon City. So the main character in this case is a gentleman by the name of Hank Bell. He's a washed up actor, and he's washed up because back in the 80s, he starred in a movie called Frankenstein 1986, which was a very um, poor attempt at making a Frankenstein movie with kind of the sensibilities of Miami Vice, which was a red hot TV show at the time. So you ended up with basically Frankenstein walking around in a Versace suit, um, with lots of neon lights everywhere and a
It just
soundtrack.
sounds bad. Yeah.
A soundtrack from Duran Duran, and it was just a total bomb, and it just
Although it
just
sounds bad in kind of the way Jason X was bad, like so bad it's kind of good.
exactly. But Pierre Opop, our extraterrestrial, he's not a real good judge of quality. So he thinks Frankenstein 1986 is one of the greatest movies ever made. He thinks it's an absolute masterpiece. So he invites Hank Bell to be one of his guests of honor in Neon City, and considers Hank to be one of the greatest American actors of all time. And
Far better than Gary Oldman or any of those really talented people.
um, and from there, I don't want to give away too much because the plot actually involves a lot of twists and turns. It involves a lot of scenes where you read a chapter and you think you totally get what just happened, but then maybe we jump back in time a little bit and see thing and get a little bit of extra information or see things from a different character's perspective, and then you kind of realize that what you just saw wasn't quite what you thought it was. So there's a lot of that in the book as far as jumping back and forth in time and playing with readers' expectations, and like I say, lots of twists and turns. Um, Basically, it involves a plot to assassinate Piora, um, which Hank may or may not be involved in. You kind of have to uh, read along and figure that out. But that's kind of the gist of it. It's fun. It's pulpy. It's nostalgic. Got a lot of '80s nostalgia in there.
You bring in
Uh,
a lot of references to like movies and bands and stuff from that time.
Tons of references
Like
to
I grew up at that time, so all that stuff is familiar to me. Yeah.
yeah. Lots of guest appearances from celebrities of that time. Piora has the capability to create um, biomechanical recreation, perfect biomechanical recreations of anyone. So in some cases, if someone who was big in the 80s is still around today, he'll invite them as a guest of honor, like he does with Hank Bell. But he'll also create biomechanical versions of 80s celebrities in their prime. So you could be walking down the street and come across you know member of the Brat Pack in their 20s, or
An
um,
early Arnold Schwarzenegger or like anyone like that.
not Arnold Schwarzenegger specifically, but there's a lot of uh,
Jean-Claude Van Damme, Steven Seagal. There's a whole bunch of people that are kind of those 80 cliches.
yep. There's lots of appearances from 80s celebrities, as I think, as I put it on the back cover blurb from the book. Hank runs into everyone from Tom Cruise to Gigi Allen. just to give you an
When,
idea of the
when did
range.
Gigi die? Was that the 80s or the 90s? I don't recall.
I want to say late 80s or early 90s.
Okay.
So, yeah, and like I say, it's kind of a sequel, kind of, I think spin-off is probably a more appropriate term to my last novel, Shithole USA. Um, and you don't have to have read Shithole USA to, you can absolutely just jump into Neon City. You won't be, the tiniest bit lost or confused. If you've read Shithole USA, there's a few things here and there that will um, just have a little bit of extra resonance, and just some things where you'll be like, oh, and just some little connections back to that book, but definitely not necessary as far as reading that book before this one.
So it concerning the two books, are they both available through the same source, the same publisher, or are they both in like Amazon might be the best place? I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, Shithole USA you can find right now out on Amazon, both in paperback and for Kindle, and it'll be the same deal with Neon City, and yeah, it's the same publisher, 13 Planets Publishing. Um, Shithole USA was actually originally published by Planet Bizarro Press, who has since folded. Uh, get a lot of that in the indie publishing world,
Uh,
unfortunately. But um, 13 Planets Press took over their titles and put Shithole USA back out in print. And Neon City is coming out, I believe, May 13th, or is it?
say it again. Like it just there was a glitch in the Matrix.
Oh no. um, Neon City is coming out next month. I think May 13th is the release date. It's either the 13th or the 15th.
Okay. And so is there do you have a personal website or is there a publisher website where people can look at all this stuff?
I don't have a personal website. I'm out on Facebook, and I publish lots of info and updates about my books and my releases out there. Not sure if 13 Planets has a website or not. I think they might just mainly do promotion through social media as well. So can go out on Facebook and other social media sites, look for 13 Planets Publishing, and get your news and updates that way.
How long would each book approximately be?
They're not super long. They're short. They're just like a little short of 200 pages. So um, they might even just sort of straddle the line between um, novella and novel. I call them novels. I feel like I've accomplished something more um, significant by calling it a novel rather than a novella. But I think there's different standards, as far as the word count for, different people have different standards for what's a novel versus a novella.
Yeah,
But
I think it's a little bit loose. Like I know at one point, like back in the 80s, like a novel had to be roughly 300 pages or more. And I was at I think AuthorCon in Virginia, and the Scares and Cares event, and one of the editors there was like talking to me, and I mentioned my book was 300 pages, and they're like, "Wow." Because of them, a book is like 190 pages on average. I was like, so things have changed over time, I see.
Yeah, I don't I don't focus on the word count too much. It's just I tell the story that needs to be told, and it ends up as long or as short as it does. I don't know if people generally have a preference for something longer, or I suppose that varies. I mean, some people probably appreciate something that isn't going to take them, a month to read, and other people probably like something a little meatier. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's hard to predict. Like I knew a collection of short stories. At least publisher told me they don't sell that well, but
yeah,
anthologies sell pretty well. You know, 'cause anthology is like if you don't like one writer, you can easily pop over to the next one. And as far as like novels I've heard, like if they're over a certain length, usually they don't sell. But then you have sell like The Stand, which is a massive seller. So it's hard to tell.
yeah. It seems like in the indie publishing world, maybe things lean toward being a little shorter.
Right.
Um, and for me, that's not by design. It's just, you know, well, actually, when I started writing Neon City, I was just on the first chapter. And I remember thinking, like, man, this is going to be like 100,000 words or more. It's because it's like I was just getting started, and I was like maybe 5,000 words in, and it was like there's so much more to go. It's like I think this one might really be up there, like 80,000 or 100,000 plus words. But yeah, it just didn't end up taking that long to tell this story. I think you just have to do what's right for the story at hand. But yeah, generally speaking, my stuff isn't real long. I'm also not an author who tends to crank out a lot of stuff. I've had a book out kind of like once every 2 years or so. And I think that's maybe a little unusual. Again, I think particularly in indie publishing, you tend to see authors put something out every year, maybe even two or three titles a year. Again, probably shorter stuff, but I kind of like. Well, I think part of it with me is after I finish something, I really like to kind of step away from writing for a while, because when I'm working on something, I'm so immersed in it. And like now that I'm done with Neon City, I'm enjoying having some time to read again, because I generally don't do a lot of reading while I'm writing. Um,
I
I'm
don't know if
enjoying.
you've noticed this, but definitely it's one thing I've noticed is like when I was a kid, I used to read like nonstop. Like we were on military bases, we didn't have TV, but there was a library, and so I'd go there and I'd just take out a huge stack of books, have them all read within a week. But now it's a little bit harder for me to read because as I'm reading, I'm going, I would not have phrased it that way. No, I would not
Yep.
have said that. So I kind of I'm trying to like differentiate so it's not like my version. Like imagine musicians probably have the same problem. Like they listen to a song by a band, they go, I would not have played that chord that way. I don't know, but I know that that kind of diffuses the fun for me a little bit.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And I think for me, if I'm in the process of writing, I'm probably even more in that mode, where it's hard to read something
Without
and
dissecting it, yeah,
without dissecting it.
which kind
And,
of
and
ruins the enjoyment.
yeah, yeah. So now that I'm done with Neon City, I'm looking forward to just doing some reading where I can just hopefully just get lost in some books and not dissect them. I'm looking forward to doing some gaming. I really like video games, and I tend not to play a lot when I'm working on something because it can just if you're a gamer, you know how addictive they can be, and they you know
Well, I
you
I
tell yourself
actually I
you
actually
tell
do play
yourself you're gonna
games.
just play for a half hour and like the evening's gone,
Yeah.
so
No, that's why I don't play games. 'Cause I did when I was a kid. Like I remember my brother first got. I'm old, so it was like a Nintendo 94. But I remember, I play them and like you just spend hours playing them. And like now I'm like I do the podcast, I write, I draw, I tattoo. Is like I just don't have time. In fact, I watched the first movie in quite a while, Furiosa, last night, and I was a little bit disappointed, but it's all right. I don't know if you've seen
yeah.
that.
I haven't seen that one yet, but it's on my list because that's another thing. Again, when I'm writing, I don't watch a ton of movies. I really tend to to focus on my writing project at hand. So, looking forward to having some time again to read and watch some movies and play some video games, and that stuff can all potentially feed into your next project. I mean, I find at least, I'll get, little bits of ideas from a movie or from a book or from a video game.
Oh,
And
definitely. I find that if I do it while I'm actually working on something, it's a distraction. But if I do it when I'm not working on something, it's like, hey, well, that's kind of a cool idea. I wonder how it would fit, and then I play around with it.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I'm very much the same way. So
So
maybe.
let me ask with the approach for your novel, like is it first person? Is it third person? Do you try and do it like present tense, past tense? Like how do you approach it?
um Neon City is third person from shifting perspectives. We're with Hank Bell, our washed up actor, a lot of the time, but we also um, shift to some other points of view throughout the book. Um, it's past tense. I it's whatever feels right. I mean, Shithole USA was actually Shithole USA shifts back and forth between two narratives. One is told in, they're both present tense, but one is first person, one is third person. Um,
Yeah, I did that a lot in my last book. Like, I have two main characters, and one, whenever it focused on him, the chapter would be in first person. Whenever it was another person, it would be in third person. Third person allows you to fill in all that omniscient narrator stuff. They like so you describe the background and the other characters and all that.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, it just sort of depends on what I'm writing, and you just sort of find the right voice and the right narrative device for for what makes sense. I think Shithole USA is, um, I guess you could call it, more experimental than Neon City. I mean, in addition to having the two. So the first half of the book is kind of these two narratives switching back and forth, and they don't seem to have a lot to do with one another. But the more you read, the more you realize that there's some connections between the two narratives. And then, right when you reach a point where you kind of think you've sort of figured it out, kind of the bottom drops out and everything just goes completely haywire, and are sections that are told in the form of TV scripts. There are sections that are told in the form of newspaper articles. There's a chapter that's told in the form of a video game guide. So Shithole USA was kind of weird and wacky and experimental. Neon City is a lot more straightforward. Now, like I said before, there are a lot of twists and turns and surprises, but it's not so experimental as far as all of these different sort of different storytelling devices.
When you say experimental, there's a huge differentiation. So there's Hunter S. Thompson kind of comic books where like I have no idea what we're talking like he didn't even know what he's talking about because he cuts it all up and puts it all together. And then there's the experimental where it's like it just kind of deviates from the normal a little bit. So where on that spectrum would you say your stuff is?
Um, for Shithole USA, my biggest inspiration was William S. Burroughs. So we're talking pretty, pretty experimental as far as that one goes. Now, not going as far as Burroughs did sometimes, like you just mentioned with the cut up method. I mean, I didn't ever write an entire chapter and cut it into pieces and throw it on the floor and and put it back together, and however it gets rearranged is the way that it gets put into the book. Not quite that experimental, but Burroughs is pretty out there, and I mean that was kind of my
Well, he
guiding.
was also doing a lot of heroin at the time, so there is
Right.
that.
Abs- Combine the two, right? I mean, you're on heroin and you're writing stuff, cutting it into pieces and
And
putting it
shooting
back
your wife
together.
in the head, and there were a few things going on. Um, I remember I both read and I saw the movie Naked Lunch. I liked both, but I remember I read Cities of the Red Sun, which is one of his cut books. But the first half is just a regular, straightforward story, and it's awesome. And then all of a sudden, you get to the second half, is all cut up, and like I have no idea what's going on here.
That was actually part of the inspiration was Cities of the Red Knight, because just like I was talking about, the first half of it um, is these two storylines switching back and forth, and then about halfway through, the bottom just drops out, and it gets really weird, and again, not to the point of like doing a cut up method of writing, but um, you know, I would say the first half of Shithole USA, you can definitely follow the plot. I mean, you might be a little confused as to how these two narratives connect to one another, but as far as what's happening and why it's happening, everything is pretty straightforward. And then um, it, just like in Burroughs' Cities of the Red Knight, it gets to a point where um, it just becomes totally weird and totally experimental.
I've been calling it City of the Red Sun, but it's actually City of the Red Night. Is that correct?
Cities of the Red Knight, yeah.
So I even have the name wrong, but
I knew exactly what you were talking about, bro. And and then Neon City is a very different read than that. Again, uh, it's more just kind of fun, funny, pulpy, just kind of a fun adventure that you get, that you kind of get hooked into. one thing about Neon City that's kind of unique is, and again, I don't want to give too much away, but maybe about two-thirds into it things take a kind of surprising dark turn into more kind of dark, violent kind of horror territory where, the I would say the the first part of the book you don't really feel like it's heading in that direction at all. So um a lot of a lot of just sort of playing with people's expectations and maybe subverting people's expectations a little bit in Neon City, but it's not as weird and experimental or gross. I should say Shithole USA. The basic premise is that there is a retirement community, a huge walled off retirement community in Florida, um, where the residents have fallen under the spell of a cult leader, and he has all of them worshiping their own excrement.
It could happen. It could happen. So are you going for more of like a kind of like a little bit more streamlined mainstream vibe, or are you like jumping back and forth between your styles?
Um, I don't know, I don't know what I'm going to do next. Like I say, Shithole USA was very weird, very gross because there's a lot of poop related stuff in there. Weird, gross, experimental. Neon City is more just sort of straightforward, fun, nostalgic. Um, Again, just sort of a kind of a fun, pulpy adventure. Um, no idea what my next one will be. I could see it. I could see it going either way. I could see it being something even more straightforward, mainstream, if you will, or I could see going totally the other way and maybe literally doing a cut up, and writing something and cutting it into pieces and pasting it back together, and that's the book. I don't know yet.
It might be kind of I don't know, but it might be kind of a cool approach if you like cut something up and then try to go through and edit it into like a little bit more readability.
Yeah.
I don't know, just throwing it out there. But all right, man. Well, thank you very much for doing this interview. Do you have anything else you want to throw out there to the sphere to let everybody know to check out?
I don't think so. Like I say, Shithole USA is out there uh, right now to read on Amazon. My book prior to that, which was a collection of short stories called Cyberpunk Zombie Jihad. That's out on Amazon as well, and Neon City will be out there soon. Like I say, I believe the release date is May 13th.
Okay. All right, so everybody look for that and throw them tons of money. And again, thank you very much for being on this.
Thanks for your time, man. It's been fun.